Okay, good evening. Call the meeting to order of the Wareham Finance Committee. It's Wednesday, August the 25th. The time is 6:30. We're in room 27. May I have the clerk call the roll, please?
Far right, new member Matt Rose, welcome. Jody Smith, Vice Chair Dave Hurd, Chair Bernie Pigeon, myself Jerry Stefanski, and Stuart Novick. And we have, what, 6, so we're all set.
We have a quorum, thank you. And it is not a roll, and I apologize in the agenda, I hadn't forgotten, but if are there any citizens here who would like to say anything at this point in time? Is there anyone here who's recording this? Thank you. And also, if anyone who's listening, they would like to communicate with the Finance Committee, we do have an email address. It's fincom.wareham.mass.usa as usual at the head of it. And the first thing on our agenda is the progress and update for the financial condition of the school building that we were touring this afternoon. Some of us had the privilege. Very exciting, very enlightening, very enthusiastic. There aren't enough words for it going around, so I turn it over to who wants to lead, Chad or Jeff wants to start? Sorry we don't have enough comfortable chairs to go around.
Yep.
If this mic is on?
No, it is not.
Oh, it is not, so we're relying on what mic? Got it.
This room has a sensitivity in the ceiling. It works quite well.
All right, so, thank you. We're happy to be here. The only person who is not here who's directly involved in this project is John Foster. He's on vacation, but he gave us an update.
Excellent.
It's all positive. And I'm thrilled that some of you managed to get to the building. I went through it yesterday with a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I was, even though we're very involved in this project, it was thrilling to see what it is in real life, especially that map of Wareham in the main entrance. So I think you'll have nothing but good news tonight, and I'll turn it over to Chad or Mark for the short presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. And so new face here is David Turcott. He's with Mount Vernon Group, the architect. Oh,
Yeah.
so not new. He's been with the project for a while, but yep. All right. So our update here is pretty quick, because you all had a chance to tour the building. So we didn't include too many photos, but we did have a few quick looks of really the rendering versus what it looks like today. I think it might have been this committee that we had talked about the reality of the renderings and how accurate they might be, and there was some back and forth at one of the meetings probably years ago. So here's a quick look, and grab a mental snapshot of that, and we jump to the next one. That's what it looks like today. So it really has come to life from the rendering. This is the rendering from probably 2.5 years ago or so.
And excuse me, Chad. Jeff, behind you with a light switch. Why don't you turn it off, please, if you would? Thank you.
Not enough?
Top, I think the one by the door. Kim, up to right behind. Thank you.
That's better. There we go. So this is the rendering from design phase, and that's modern day now. So we still have some site improvements to do. The binder course is complete all the way around the project site. The final coat of asphalt won't go on until they finish the rest of the site improvements. We want them to have the curbing in, the plantings in, all that stuff. The plantings are really constrained by the seasons, right? We don't want to put that in a heat wave in August. The plants will not survive. So now that we're heading into hopefully some cooler and wetter weather, I don't know if we can get much wetter than this summer, but some cooler weather at least. The plantings will ramp up a bit, and we have some major shipments coming from the nurseries lined up. The next image here, so another rendering, and Detective Dean Dekas with the police department's been kind enough to run out there with his drone a few times, and here's a similar vantage of what it looked like last time he was out there. So again, really coming to life. This one is it's a little bit older, maybe a month or so ago. So the
sort of June, I think.
June, okay. So the plantings aren't in place yet, but you can really see the building kind of take shape. And I'll just jump back and forth one more time. So this area in the front has now been paved. The colors were just decided by the building committee. It's not going to be these fully painted surface because they do get marred by tire marks and there's durability concerns. So it's a little bit changed, but a lot of the fun features are still in there.
I will add, go back once. Believe it or not, we're going to have pickleball courts instead of those two, I guess, kickball courts. So I'm sure some of the people over in Onset and the Y who are playing pickleball and looking for courts will be thrilled to know that when the kids aren't there, they've got pickleball courts.
And they are well used, too.
Very good.
Yes, they are very well used.
There'll be 4 courts in all.
So that's a modern day look from that vantage. And then if you flip around to the rear of the building, so this is, Minot Ave would be at the top of the screen in this image, and this is the cafeteria back here. This other large structure is the gymnasium. Modern day, the look is that. So again, this is a month older, so the last time P made it out with this drone, but you can see the building really come to life. I'll jump back and forth one more quick time. The rendering there from 2.5 years ago, and that's as it stood late June, maybe early July.
One of the things you'll notice on that picture is there's even less on the roof than there was initially planned, which is a really good news story.
It's true. So you see all these units on the roof. They were actually forced down into mechanical mezzanines. One of the concerns that the building committee voiced was proximity to the ocean and the salt air's effect on the longevity of those units, and durability is something we've heard over and over again from really everybody in Wareham. So they really made a concerted effort to try to address all of those concerns as best as possible. So these units are actually parked above the kitchen in a mechanical mezzanine right in this area. There's another mechanical mezzanine out here above the music rooms. And if you go to the modern day, you'll see all those units in the classroom wings are not on the roof anymore. The only units that are out there are the very, very large units that serve spaces like the cafeteria with high occupant loads. The chilled water plants are actually moved out back here. This is a good view of that. So this is the generator, the transformers here, and then the 2 chillers are here. And then this building here is outdoor storage for both maintenance equipment and for athletics for the eventual soccer fields that are going back here. So really coming to life right before our eyes. We're almost there. On the cost side of things, so project cash flow, our original cash flow projection is this top line. The actual burn is this red line. We're waiting on an invoice for this month. That's why that drops off there. It just hasn't been submitted yet. Paid to date amount is $63.5 million. MSBA has reimbursed $44.4 million to date, and then we have $1.5 million that's pending MSBA audit. So of that $1.5 million, there will be an additional 70% or whatever it calcs out to. So we're tracking along right where we thought we'd be, and then as far as the forecast, working with John Foster, the district out of pocket, of course, is very important, because we don't want to over borrow, right? So we're closely monitoring that. The MSBA payment curve is this green bar here, and reimbursed to date is $44.4 million, and we were looking at just a hair over $40 million, so we're really in the ballpark. A function of that underrun is the bid savings. So this is still based on the original project budget. It was not re-baselined for the bid savings. Revised tax impact projection. So this is hot off the press. This is the first group that has seen these numbers. Again, we talked about the paid to date, the reimbursed to date. We are 91% complete on time right now. Their contract completion date is mid-October. Contingency expended, so authorized changes to date, 29% of the contingency. The committee did shift the bid savings into contingency, but that's not included in this calculation. This is using the original budgeted contingency that was 5% of the construction cost. So kind of a then and now. Back in 2018, this committee provided support for the project with the numbers as you see on the left side. So we were $90.5 million with the district share of $38.6 million. That calculated out to 82 cents per thousand of assessed value tax impact, and that worked out to $211 annually for the average single-family home. We reran the numbers and projected our cost through completion, so it is a projection, but it's going to be close. As of right now, we're looking at a target total spend of $74.8 million. So that's nearly $16 million less than the authorized budget. The district share sees most of that savings. The way that the MSBA funding agreement was negotiated during the PFA bid amendment, we call it, the funding agreement bid amendment. So fortunately, the district share savings is roughly 14 million of that 16 million. The delta that you see there is just that we're not spending reimbursable cost accounts. So if you have an allowance for A item and B item, and the funding agreement assumes that if you spend that money, the MSBA is going to reimburse you at 75%, we're not going to spend it, so we're not going to get that 75%. There's just nothing that we could possibly buy to get that reimbursement money from the state. So that's why you don't see the full realized $16 million savings, but to capture 14 million out of the 16 million and put it in the district's pocket really is incredible.
That's great.
So that works out to 38 cents per thousand of assessed value at the actual borrowing rates that were obtained. So rates obviously came down too. I think back 2018 when we ran the numbers, the rates were a bit higher, so some of the savings is from that. Average single family home has come up a little bit from the just typical 2.5. And then annually that works out to $116 a year for the average single family. So it's almost half of what it was when it was presented to and approved by the voters back in 2018. So really a great story to tell.
So I had a member of the Board of Selectmen ask the obvious question, which is, okay, you guys just padded this when you originally did it, and this is really what you expected. And the answer is no. We did, and some of you saw these graphs, we did a reasonable extrapolation of what the costs had been and how much they had risen over time, and we said that looks like about the right number on a cost per square foot basis. And then we got great advice from these guys. Kim made a decision not to demand that it be a September opening. That increased the number of bidders, and then 10-year rates fell through the floor, and we capitalized on that with the borrowing. So all of that is really what contributed to those numbers. And if we had tried to project this, it would have been a serious error on our part, because this could very well not have happened. So it's all a good news story. We'd love to take all the credit for it, but some of it was just luck. But we also got some good advice, and Kim made a great decision about not having to open in September. But it's a real story, and I can tell you that the Wareham project is now an anomaly on the state's graph. I think is fair to say. They can't figure out exactly why that dot is there instead of there.
And when we began, MSBA has some very specific requirements, and we had to go out to the independents. Chad went out and made that to get the estimate that we went to the voter for. And when he came back, I think it was a year and a half later, and actually said with the baking contract came in, I mean, we all sat there with our mouths open.
And I remember sitting, I only did it once, but I remember sitting for 3 hours in some office where two estimators, I think it was two estimators, said, you know, okay, yeah, this looks right. So it all seemed perfectly reasonable at the time until it wasn't.
Yeah. I think the other major cost saver here, that the bulk of these MSBA projects, and I'll show you a graph in a second, didn't have the luxury of. We put out 3 different bid packages, and there were questions, I think actually at this committee again a couple years ago, why did we keep stopping, or starting? That's because we bid it out 3 times under a lump sum bid. Normally, when you're in a situation like that, you hire a construction manager at risk, and you just amend their contract with each, but you lose the value of having a competitive bid. So by putting it out as 3 separate bid packages, yes, we had to start, stop, but we still finished in the same amount of time and saw the additional cost benefit of what you see here.
And you even made the option or the decision to move some of the things that we leave off to the end, i.e. IT and all, move it into the main bid. So even then, the bid still came down low.
Yep.
And it's not to our advantage, of course, we have contingency money left over.
Exactly.
And what is really spectacular is how you've maintained your time frame, your schedule during COVID. I think that's very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's really a credit to, I mean, it's everybody, it's the contractor, the general, the subcontractors, it really is, it's a great team over there. It's a great quality product. The architect has been stellar, the design is superb. I mean, you have a building with full air conditioning and terrazzo in all your common spaces, and that graph I'm about to show you at the MSBA, none of those other buildings have what that building has. So,
I asked the general contractor, I said, okay, Chad, truth, not this Chad, a different Chad, truth time. You know, what do you really think of this project? And he said, there hasn't been anything like it in his work history, in terms of the quality of the product that they've been able to deliver for the cost. So this really is something the town of Wareham has earned.
Oh, the artwork on the floor, that is all through the building. It's fantastic, really is.
I think there are a lot
with
of,
us.
Yeah.
there's a lot in there that I think the community would be very happy to see, that it just doesn't, we don't get to that level of detail on the public presentation. So when you walk into that building and you see that artwork that's built into the terrazzo floors.
Say, Jeff, I wonder if it had anything to do with hiring a local boy.
Are you talking about Mark? And Chad? Who else is local? Actually, John is pretty local
John's
too.
local, yeah.
Yes, so we've got 3 key members of the project management team who have not only their brains, but their heart into this project.
Their kids are gonna go to that school, that's why.
So that's the tax impact update. Great news there, we're about half. And so these numbers right now, it's our guess, but we gave a range, and we used the higher end of that range to run these numbers. It's a smaller range now, it's much smaller, but that's where we think right now. Hopefully it's a little bit better than that, but we're getting to that point where we're running out of budget to spend, as you see here. So timeline elapsed, we talked 91.4%. And then contingency utilization. So this is all based on the original contingency accounts. This does not include the bid savings that was transferred into contingency. We've kept the original budgets here for tracking purposes. So authorized changes here is 25% of the total contingency. This is both combined hard and soft cost contingencies. We do have a current exposure amount of $388,000. So that's maybe changes that have been authorized or issued that we're still working through with the contractor to figure out what the correct number is, or maybe just waiting on the number, and that's PMA's plug value for it. So most of that we ran through today. It's probably real cost. We'll see it come down the line, but even with that factored in, if it was the full amount, which generally will not be, the available contingency is still 65% untouched, and we only have 8.5% left to go on the project. So we're really coming up to the finish line here, and there's not a whole lot of hidden variables left. So we're in really good shape on the project contingency. The other budget that we track closely is the FF&E and IT procurement. This one's important because the MSBA reimburses this at 75%. So we actually want to spend every dollar of this if it's going towards good product in the building and stuff that can be used for years, because it's 25 cents on the dollar for the town of Wareham. So right now the technology expenditure is relatively low, as we put so much in the base contract. The smart TVs are in the base contract, the speech reinforcement system, the network switches. There's a lot in the base contract. Usually these two budgets are half and half, but you can see there that by shifting that into the base, it freed up enough to get the furnishings that the building needs and get them fully reimbursed by the MSBA. If you break these budget amounts, it's 100% of the district. So not only are they under by $180,000, but they're going to have everything that they need in that building. So good news on that front. And then I think this is the last slide that we have. So this is that MSBA cost data sheet. This little star down here is the Wareham project, and you can see we are an anomaly on the MSBA system. So these boxes are their fiscal years. We are, by a long shot, the lowest cost projects as it boils down to cost per square foot in the MSBA's fiscal year that we landed in. And remember, this project, we have technology in that number. We have a ton of parking, way more than your average school might see. There's fields, it's a big site, there's a lot of drainage, terrazzo floors, full air conditioning, so there's a lot carried in that number there to be the lowest one in the MSBA's fiscal year. But that was the charge from the town. We knew that this needed to be a cost-effective project and needed to be a durable, functional building. And hopefully that's what everybody sees when they finally get to occupy that building. We're proud of the work product, and we think this committee and the other committee and the school and everyone else from the town should be as well.
Okay. Anything else from the group? Jeff, Jim?
I think that covers it, but we're certainly open to any questions that you might have.
By all means, anything, gentlemen? Questions? Tom, Matt,
The,
Stuart?
First, the potential capacity and the current, I mean, in other words, how much room we got to wiggle here so we can get the students that have gone out of Wareham back in?
It was built for 1,040, I believe is the number. We're starting with somewhere between 700 and 800. Do you know a more precise number than that?
No, because we're still enrolling students.
That's
We've never
good
quite
news.
had a year like this. We've just been overwhelmed by the number of students coming in to enroll. It's a mixture of students returning from being remote, but it's also a number of students new to the district. So we're really shaking that out. We've had over 200 enroll this year.
So we've got another 25% that theoretically could go in. And then, of course, if we had to, we could shift the fourth grade into the middle school because that will have that much more room. So I think the town's looking at plenty of capacity for the foreseeable future.
Well, that's good, you built in 25% extra, holy crap.
It's a large school, as you can see just driving by. On the other hand, the way it's been designed, it works because kids feel like it's really 2 or 3 schools rather than one large school, the way it's set up.
I think prior to COVID, your student population for that grade group, or collection, was about 850. And it was going down for whatever reason, but you're losing kids and all. But in this case, as Jerry's question includes, the condition of that school is just so extraordinary that I'm sure word gets around, those kids will be back that you may have lost to school choice or something of that nature. As I said, Bethany was with us this afternoon, and she couldn't give any number because that question was asked. Anything else, Jody?
Kind of following up on what Jerry said, there's a whole bunch, some new projects coming into town. You know, the big unknown how many students there may be, but you kind of answer, you should be able to handle the majority.
Even the high school, the current enrollment for the high school, I believe, is about 600. It was built for 1,000, I believe. So if we had to, we could shift things around and even have the high school absorb some more. But we don't really want to do that.
Right.
We'd much rather have it shift to the middle school because the middle school will only have 3 grades, 5, 6, and 7. So that's the place. And the middle school, of course, is relatively new and still in excellent shape. And the capital projects that Ken has in mind to use some of the federal money is going to make them in even better shape. They're already happening. So I think from a physical plant perspective, things are looking really good with sufficient capacity for the future. And frankly, you know, what doesn't get enough praise is what's happening educationally. So I think the combination is going to make a lot of parents think twice about going anywhere but Wareham.
Well, like I said, I wouldn't want to be the person responsible for telling a parent that your kid might have to go up to the middle school from the brand new school. I wouldn't want that job, that's for sure.
I have to tell you, I coach a tennis team, and they have literally more than one have said to me, Coach, is there any reason why we can't have the high school where the elementary school is?
Yeah. You know, another thing too is, and I know I've talked to people till I'm blue in the face about the savings that was put forward and stuff and how much they've saved on their tax bill. I think that's a really big piece of news to get out there, you know? People always think the worst, that you run over, you spend money you don't need to spend, and, you know, it's,
And
it can get ugly sometimes, but
And
the,
something that Chad said, but it needs to be emphasized, the custodial staff are gonna love this building.
yeah,
It is gonna wear so well, that, you know, it's just gonna look great for a long time.
Chad, I was gonna ask, everything comes with a warranty. When does the clock start?
At substantial completion. So once the contractor hits 99% complete, or beneficial use and occupancy, so once there's a CMO, will probably be the date, the law will start warranty periods then, so that every single item in the building has a 1-year warranty, and then from there, it's system by system, component by component. A lot of it does have extended warranties, but it varies.
On the warranties, when you wouldn't have the necessity, like Kim's staff would be monitoring that, who might they return to? Because I'm sure there's a ton of paperwork that says everything's guaranteed 1 year, and you have all the wheres and wherefores.
Yep, so right now, the contractor's providing submittals for O&Ms and warranty documents, and that all gets reviewed by the architect and their team and their engineers. Once that's approved, it gets logged into the project's electronic database, and that is converted to several terabyte hard drives and turned over to the district. And also the online platform stays on. So as there's facility folks or custodians or administrators, they can have access to that system and go in and see who has the warranty for a particular system and get the information there. And then of course, PMA, Mount Vernon Group, we're not going anywhere, so we still field questions from projects we completed 10 years ago, just looking for information or the right contact, so you can always reach out to us as well.
Okay, that leads into my next question. When does your contract end?
End of this year.
January, December 31st?
December, yep.
Is
Yep.
Mount Vernon's also?
I believe so, yes. I think that's it. Yep.
We know where they live.
Yes, we do.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
What's the depreciable life on the building?
So the MSB requires that the building be certified for at least a 50-year building. Generally, what do you see, 75 years the design target?
Absolutely, it all depends too on your maintenance over time. You know, provided that you do good maintenance, you should get 50 years easily out of that building. Especially with the amount of terrazzo that's in this building. We're actually doing some projects in Bedford at City Hall, and they have terrazzo floors in there that are 100 years old. And other than the color being maybe not the most pristine color, there's just a couple of structural small cracks down the middle. 100-year-old terrazzo floor, still in great shape. So you can expect that out of this building.
The warranties were increased on this project too, so the roof warranty, a standard roof warranty is 15 years. You might get 20 years out of it, but 15 years is the typical. It's a 30-year warranty on this roof, on this building. So it has a covered board, it's a thicker membrane, and that's covered from the manufacturer for that extra 15 years beyond what the typical is. And that was a request from the building committee, so. It's, there's a lot of little items like that that are baked into this cost as well that you really don't see, so. I think the question to, was the cost inflated? Looking at that graph, absolutely not. I mean, we couldn't put that number to the voters and then we didn't hit that number. You have to go back for more money, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't pass.
Yeah.
You can't go back twice.
What's a good maintenance percentage to use? You know, yearly maintenance expense percentage to use against the cost of the building. Should you be spending on average 1% a year for maintenance against the cost, or 5%? Are there any figures like that?
I don't know that I can answer that offhand, as it really is kind of building and building system specific. We can certainly look into that and get back to this group, but I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for it offhand for this one.
That's a really interesting question. I mean, you could ballpark, take the total cost, divide it by 50 years, divide it by 12 months, and come out with a number. That's sort of the thing an accountant might do. But as Chad said, you know, on a system-by-system basis, it might end up with a weird number. But it's a very interesting question. the short answer is, you don't want to skimp on maintenance. It is definitely a pay me now, pay me later.
Yeah, that was my point. Wouldn't want to see, I would like to see enough of maintenance budgeted, you know, that you spend this amount of money.
Yes.
And there might be, okay, don't go below this figure because it's a shortchanging yourself figure.
It's a great question, yes.
It's almost one of the first thing cuts in budget is maintenance.
Yeah,
And I've said that from the time I moved into this town. I said, you just need to do more maintenance in all your buildings. I'm not saying the schools.
well, the accountants have a term, it's called deferred maintenance.
And prior to the demolition of the existing Minot Forest School, we had gone through that building. And while both the 60s and the 70s buildings were incredibly structurally sound, in fact, our structural engineer was amazed at how the great condition that the building was in. It was really all your systems inside that I think were original for the most part. I remember one of the janitors saying that before the kids arrived to school every morning, they actually had to run the bubblers, the water fountains, for a good 10 minutes or so to kind of flush out any contaminants that may have built up in the piping system. So, you know, it was really those interior systems that may have been maintained, but had just gone end of life. But the buildings themselves were still in great shape.
Everybody's gonna be taught from home anyway
Oh, my
in the
God.
next 10 years, so
Right,
they're
right.
gonna
The
they're
building
gonna
won't
figure out
get
what
as
the next
much
use of the
abuse,
building
as
is.
much abuse, right.
Let's get with it, guys.
Don't tell my tennis kids that, they love being in school.
Well, we have to get the life out of that 85-inch touchscreen in every room.
But you could build a 50-year maintenance plan on there, so you know when you gotta do this, this, and this.
Yep.
And you get an idea of what you got out ahead of yourself.
Yeah, most manufacturers have a life expectancy of their, down to the last bolt, the way it's manufactured.
I got one question. How did you guys miss the original estimate of this building by so much?
In terms of being over,
Pardon me?
in terms of on the high side?
Yeah, why was it so expensive? I mean, we might have gone in and asked the town for $90 million or whatever the heck we asked them for. And they say, well, we're not gonna spend $90 million. But if we're gonna spend $70 million, say fine. Yeah, I mean, you missed, to miss it by that much, there's gotta be some rationale why it happened.
Yeah, I can explain that one. So the one big variable, we bid this out right at the start of COVID, and COVID was just starting to hit. I can think back to last March. People were really wondering, is this going to be the next financial collapse? When we bid this out, there were no other projects going to bid. So we literally got the best possible bids, and part of that is because of COVID. That's
But
one-
but specifically, no other projects were being bid for a January completion.
Right. The projects that were out there had a very, very compressed schedule. So the estimating process, when we go through that, we don't do it in-house. We hire independent estimators. They hire their own, and then we hire our own. They take it totally separate. And these two estimators only do schools. That's their specialty. So they're working within this MSBA pipeline, going through these drawings, and we do it at preferred schematic design, design development, 60% and 90%. So we do 6 rounds of completely independent estimators at every design deliverable. They do it in a vacuum, and then we meet at that meeting that Jeff talked about. That it's a full day meeting. Sometimes they go 10 hours, and we go line by line through the estimates. They're on the phone with suppliers, subcontractors during the meeting, checking the numbers anytime they're in disagreement. So that's what the process looks like. So when they estimate the job, they're looking at what the other projects are coming in at, and we were always low. We were just never that low. We were always the lowest. Even at $90 million, we were the bottom blip on that graph.
Chad, the time frame that you're referring to, that was after we'd actually gone to vote. Because the,
2 of them are before the vote.
okay,
So the 2 early estimates are before the vote.
because it's all with the, it might say, when you say it's someone else does it, it's required by MSBA that you
Right.
go out to independent parties to get that estimate, that when we came in at 90 mil.
Exactly.
In fact, 2 of them came in.
Two of them, yep.
Yep, they both came in at around 90.
Right.
And the fact that we came 80 was bacon and just the time frame that we took advantage of. The interest rate was great. The projects that were going on out there, as Chad had explained, was outstanding. It was, we were extraordinarily fortunate, all the way down.
But they knew that.
No.
No, we did.
Or you didn't know the interest rates were low?
Oh,
Not
no.
at the time, no.
I'm
No, I think the rates carried and the assumptions were close to 5%. They used, I don't know what the rates were back then, maybe 3.5%, 4%.
So
But then
that's-
they carried this.
This is a graph, you can't see it from here, but this is a graph of the 10-year treasury rate. You see how it literally collapsed? I mean, collapsed, and we took advantage of that. Now, the 10-year rate is not the same as the municipal bond rate,
Mhm.
but they correspond, okay? And if John was here, he'd probably tell you, exactly how much he saved, but it's more than half of, far more than half of what we thought we were gonna spend on borrowing, we're saving. Far more than half.
Okay, well, how much was that?
I don't know the answer. I will try and get that for you, but just think of the borrowing as, any idea what the cost of borrowing is as a percentage of the project?
I don't offhand.
I don't know the answer.
We have the data, I can
Yeah,
provide it.
but the bottom line, no one predicted the 10-year rate would literally collapse to less than 1%. I mean, that's unheard of. Historically, it's never happened. It's a black swan, if you will.
I can remember John was scurrying around down his office with his staff, trying to get the paperwork done in time to take advantage of the fact the interest rate had gone down. And he wanted to get that locked in there with the bond council and all. It was just fortuitous, the whole thing, and we were so fortunate.
The building committee did not want to go into that vote $1 higher than they needed to be, as there was a lot of concern that the project might not pass. The MSBA expressed concern directly to us. They said that project is not going to pass in Wareham. Told them we would get it through, but we were not going in any higher than we thought we needed to be on that number. There's no
Yeah.
way.
In
Because
the
it's-
90, we went to
But
vote.
but that's an embarrassing difference.
No.
I mean, we're dealing with professionals here on all sides,
Yep.
and you're missing by 15%?
No, so some of this is contingency that was just never spent. We're low on contingency too. So there's a standard of care for things like design errors and omissions, unforeseen conditions. So you anticipate you're gonna spend your contingency. And here, those numbers were very, very low, credit to Mount Vernon Group, and credit to those early bid packages that uncovered a lot of our unforeseen conditions. So when we got rid of those buildings and we cut that site down to final grade, we cut our risk in half. And at that time, the project's already funded by the voters, so we needed the money to do that phase of work, right? So it's not like we could go back and reset the number. We're just carrying forward a little bit of savings, and it snowballed. And that's, the big savings was the general contractor, and do you remember how low they were? I wanna say
Below it.
eight,
I thought it was-
nine
I
million
thought it
Oh,
was-
dollars.
yeah, and that was one item that our office was just absolutely shocked by. Not only the fact that Agostini Bacon obviously was the low bid, but I think the next two low bidders, they were within percentage points of Agostini Bacon. There wasn't, 8 to 10%, it was like 1, 2, 3%.
Take a
They were
look at,
extremely close.
The Westport Middle School projects. They have a chance, go home, Google that one. They bid the same time as us. They were 10 million over. And that's the risk. I mean, you time the market wrong and you can easily swing 10 million in the wrong direction. So the market timing here was right, but the estimators they're not getting into that, okay, you're gonna bid exactly when there's no other projects out there, and a pandemic just happened to hit, and the contractors are afraid that nothing else is gonna come out for another 2 years for them to bid on. So that's what we hit. So that piece of it was absolutely sheer luck. The estimators, there's no way they could have accounted for it.
But that low number, that has set the record for our office in terms of overall costs coming in below the estimated cost.
See, I look at this, all the stars just seem to align
Yeah.
just right.
Amazing.
But on the other hand, it could have gone the other way too, that the supply chains now are a mess.
Yes.
Construction material is going through the roof, so I mean, you know, in life, timing is everything sometimes.
Even the completion date, which is now,
Yeah.
when I asked Bacon yesterday, it looks like it's probably gonna creep back closer to October 15th, which is the original date
Yeah.
we've been using for a while. You know, I mean, that could have easily slipped with COVID problems with subs and all that,
Yeah.
and it didn't, and it hasn't. So, you know, there are things to be embarrassed by. This isn't one of them.
Well, I mean, you'd be a lot more embarrassed if you were at 105 coming out.
Yes.
All right.
The town actually is in a perfect scenario because this new school is being built off-site. You don't have to deal with any phasing of, you know, moving kids from one part of the building to another when that one's finished. Everybody's segregated off-site, and then once the new school's ready.
And don't,
It's
and
really
don't
perfect
forget, we got
situation.
the Minot Forest School demolished for that price. We don't have yet another mothballed school in the town with nobody knowing what to do with it.
The Everett School is still,
And the Hammond School, and the West Wareham School, and the East Wareham School. We missed, that was taken care of with this project.
I think in closing remark, the whole process was extraordinary. The building itself is extraordinary. The people who built it were extraordinary in what they did and how they conducted it. And I think Wareham can be proud of the personnel and the building, the finished product. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
well, let's hope that the first class out of high school that came through this building in 2038 is the brightest class we ever had come through.
It may very well be.
Huh?
And Tom, when I call the meeting to order in this 50 years, I'll want an opinion from you as to the construction.
May we all be more than a memory.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, in talking to Bethany, I remarked that I don't know what she's gonna do, because she just has so many opportunities to do things in that building.
I know. It's amazing. Every time I walk through there, I just get more and more excited. And I can't wait until we're able to get our students there.
Oh, indeed. And she's a bubbly person anyway, personality, and she just was going on and on.
It's so exciting.
Even the bus drivers are excited.
Yeah.
How are you doing on that?
Actually, we've increased by 3, possibly 4 drivers. And it's looking not quite as scary as it was earlier in the summer.
Did your new offering manifest itself?
Yes, it's made a difference.
Good, good.
It has.
Unfortunately, but good, because we were low anyway on your competition with other ones. Great.
But thank you so much. I appreciate your help and support, and I'm so happy you were able to see the building today.
Do you have any leftover 85-inch TVs?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Okay, next order of business. Well, let's see, regarding, there's a budget that Kim had passed out, and I didn't see the need to question her about it, but is there any questions? I think it's reasonably, what they projected was, we were originally looking for was line items with respect to balance the same line items that they would have at another school, Beacus or Minot. And I think the budget as of January 2022 is the preliminary, that's the second page. The Wareham, it starts with the FDK substitute, paralegals, as you're going on and on and on. That is the new school, that's what they project it to be. DESI hadn't required them to put any of those line items in on July 1st, because the building didn't exist as far as they were concerned. And they're only concerned with what they see on July 1, DESI. The rest are just updates, and then they change the accounts as they go along. But that was it, and that was, so it's, I think they satisfied what we were requiring of them, or asking of them anyway. If there's any concerns about it, I can go further with them if you like. I've asked Kim also to produce another overall budget which may very well hopefully include these line items in it, so that we will actually have a part of the budget with these figures in it. Any concerns, questions regarding that? No? Okay, the next one on the agenda, let's see, approval of membership. There's a charge to join the Association of Town Finance Committees. And what essentially the association does is lobbies on behalf of the finance committees through the Mass Municipal Association for the local cities and towns. And Alan Slavin is a director on that board. I'm a director on the Association of Town Finance Committees. And the dues for all the cities and towns is 351, 340, I believe, are actually considered towns. And the town dues is $280. Can I have a motion?
So moved. I move we approve
The annual dues.
the annual dues.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion?
Got a second.
Any second?
Yes,
Jody, second. David was made the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Let's see, Tom came in, so it's 700. The new cherry sheet figures based on what the legislature has voted on, and we're down, well, chapter 90. If you saw recently, Senator Pacheco announced that he had gotten 740,000 for the town. Unfortunately, typically we get 930,000, something around there. So we got less in chapter 90 funds. But because that's spent, exclusively on highway, we don't see that in our original budget. And David Bernard is with Derek, agree with what roads are going to be done, and David has a idea of the priorities based on conditions that he sees, et cetera. That's how his money is spent. He has to actually accumulate monies if he wants to do any kind of a large project, because by rule of thumb, about for every mile, it's a little over $1 million. And that's not town forces. He has to contract something like that out because he doesn't have that kind of equipment. But anyway, on a cherry sheet, we come up short based on what we originally projected of $150,848. We talked with Derek about this, and because it is obviously a shortfall from what we originally projected at town meeting in terms of anticipated revenues. And he said it's only 150, considering the amount of revenue that we're projecting over $60 million, between the $60–70 million range, that 150,000 is really almost incidental or irrelevant. And he feels that the other funds that we have will certainly come in higher than projected and will easily make up for any of that particular shortfall. So he doesn't anticipate any problem whatsoever, and he is not concerned about that shortfall at all. Any comments, concerns? Because there's no vote at this, of course. Okay, now our we don't have to take a vote, but it's just a vote on just the FYI. Our budget at town meeting is $6,000 for expenses and $50,000 in our reserve fund. And I've signed off on that I had to sign off on it. The town meeting already told me what I'm getting. We just got a copy, and I copy everyone when I get paperwork of the Upper Cape, which is $3,637,529. That was what we voted at town meeting.
No change on that.
No change on that. The next item is the harassment. The only, we have to sign all these papers now. The only one I'm missing is, let's see, Glenn's not here this evening. Just Matt, and I have one from Matt. So that's taken care of. On the open meeting law, the only one I'm missing on that, let's see where we are here. There's Matt. Let's see, Stuart, I don't have,
I thought we didn't have to do that. You just wanted us to.
well, that was, yes, that's
It was
right.
just a conflict of interest
Right.
and something else.
Yeah, what was in the back of that?
It's 40 pages of great reading.
I read it.
No, that was
twice.
the conflict of interest. It was 40 pages of reading, then doing
Yep.
a test afterwards. And in the conflict of interest,
Here's,
thank you. There's Tom, David, Jerry, Matthew. That's good for the new man to be right on time with his schedule. Joseph and Stuart, I'm just missing Glenn and Dominic. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. I appreciate it. I have to do that every 3 years, and I was going back in my paperwork and I found mine for the last. The public records, that's an awareness. They're asking, there have been some requests for public records. It's incumbent on us to provide for the request in full and what they request, meaning that if not, they can involve the Attorney General, who'll come down and stop our hands and tell us to provide what is requested in a timely fashion, and they can, if it's an extraordinary request, charge the requestor reasonable amount. I don't know what that is. My point of view is it's all public information. The only time it goes out of the public information realm is when it is involved as evidence in a suit. And then, by law, it comes out.
Have we had any of those recently?
Not affecting us,
Good.
and I don't know of any particular suit that may be outstanding at this point that may involve it. It's one of those things I'd rather not get the Finance Committee get involved in. Because everything we do, we are not allowed to go into executive session, we're not allowed to even meet. That's why only 4 of us, if we get together, it's the maximum we can have, because 5 would be requiring an open meeting. But that's all. Any questions?
Nope.
Nope. The next one, liaisons. Of course, I didn't, went right into the meeting, and I neglected to introduce our new member, Matt. Matt is involved in various issues. You want to tell us about them, Matt? It gives an idea of your background and what you're interested in.
Well, currently working with the Massachusetts Coalition for Independent Workers on a petition item which might actually not even make the ballot. Might have legislation prior to the ballot. Right now it's only acting as a placeholder. Met with Marty Walsh on Thursday of last week, going over all that with him. I've worked with, and I still work with the various 501c3 programs. I still work with Derby, although I'm not actively skating with them anymore. I still work with roller derby organizations, helping them set up games and matches, which they're getting back to this fall.
Roller derby.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Been doing that for almost 9 years. I refed for 4 of them, but I'm getting too old to sit on roller skates anymore. I've worked in town for the last 21 years. With various different locations throughout town. I've worked for Depot Auto, I've worked for Mark's Auto Service here in town, as service managers for both of them. When I first moved to Wareham 21 years ago, it was the KFC on the other side of town where I was an assistant manager when we opened up Taco Bell back then. I really don't know much more. I mean,
Oh, fine,
Any
thank you.
questions? Yeah.
We welcome you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask anyone.
I'm not afraid of questions.
Good. Liaisons. Jody, you said I had one down for you. You're on Council on Aging?
Yes, I am.
And who had Council on Aging? Did someone else?
I didn't see it on there. I
Okay.
but I could have missed it.
No, I don't see it. But does anybody have any, that they would like to get rid of?
Yeah.
That Matt would have a,
Take your choice, except for that one. Pick any but the planning board.
Except for which one?
Planning board.
Oh.
You can have all the rest of them if you want.
you're generous.
I've got a good list there.
It's a long list.
Yeah, when I finally filled them all out in this fashion, I realized how overburdened some of you are.
It's crushing. You don't have to take anything.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to.
Oh,
look at, like,
it's
the
either a
half-eaten
choice
everything
or a. Now, the community events, that's the one that, one of the things they fund is fireworks, because they get a certain percentage every year for the community events.
Why don't I take that one off your hands and, the dog study, which,
Great.
Okay, you want community events and dog study?
Haven't they built that dog thing yet?
no, not yet.
Not yet.
I still see them talking about
This
it.
is going on a decade.
Yeah,
I think when I first started, they were.
What is the big deal?
money, I think.
Yeah, I think that's,
It's about a bunch of dogs.
I'm not even
running
sure
around.
that the original people are still involved in it.
they've got like 100 dogs that walk through
Okay, now,
Plaza every day.
now, gentlemen, your generosity, stewards in particular, generously parted with 2 of his.
I will part with open space.
Each?
Okay, you're gonna part with open space. That all right with you, Matt?
Sure.
That related to dog parks and stuff.
See?
They need a lot of open space for what they do in Wareham.
Now, at only fair, anybody else wanna give up one?
I'd like to take another look at mine.
I don't even know
Oh,
what
you gotta
mine
reach in
are.
front of you.
Yep.
Is that this one?
Yeah. Can I borrow that list?
How about recycling?
Recycling?
Yep.
Matt? Recycling.
Okay.
Thank you. I haven't deleted it.
Okay, that sounds like good. Anything else, though, off the top of your head, anyone else? Is there anything you would like, Matt?
Not at
Don't be
this
afraid to
time.
volunteer now.
No, not at this time.
I mean, we might just bring you into some of these other meetings, just to
I'm
maybe
more than
sit-
happy to.
sit in and just see what goes on.
More than happy to.
Yes, because some of them, they get involved, like, as an example, the planning board, they actually get involved in some of these issues that are somewhat complex. And 2 heads may be better figuring out things because you're listening to them and you're hoping to understand, but they themselves know a lot of background in any of the zoning requirements. And they've, amongst themselves, are having a conversation that you may not understand, so between the 2 of you. Yeah.
Yeah, and they often flow right into conservation or ZBA too.
Okay, and gentlemen, minutes.
I move to approve
Minutes
all
go
the
by.
minutes.
Why don't we just take them as they are?
Yeah, I move to approve all of them.
Huh?
That would also include February 24th and March of 2020 and March 10th of 2021.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be phony if we did anything different.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Huh?
Okay,
I'll
Stuart
second.
and Jody second. Any discussion?
Did a good job.
Oh, we're not done. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll submit them, sign them and submit them to the town clerk to go into the record. And next one is the minutes that are needed. which there's there's 12 left. I would ask if you might each take at least one. These are all archived in WCTV, so if you want to know what's going on, you can do so. I would urge you to, I would like you to each take at least one, as I said, and go back into our minutes and see how they were written. You don't have to be detailed as to each discussion. If you see something as a highlight that you think should be there, use your own judgment as you want to do. You don't have to write a long paragraph. However, if you feel the subject matter deserves a long paragraph, it's your call.
So why don't you assign rather than...
I think that's a good
because-
idea. Just hand them out to each.
Okay, we'll do, let's
How are
see.
we supposed to know who is present and who, oh, because
The
it's
tape,
archived.
it's on tape.
How do you find this on TV?
Just go to
WCTV.
.org.
And what will be there?
Archive. Just go into archive, you'll see the whole bar.
So you can watch it on a computer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And when you go into archive, if it doesn't have the 2021, you just go over to where it says meetings, and it's archived on that one. It just hasn't been transferred over for that time frame. Okay, let's see. The 21 June. Okay, June 30th.
Of this year?
Tom? Tom? And let's see, I've got these in order, why aren't I gonna? Oh, okay. And let's see, April 28th. This is a good start for math.
Is he even a member?
And 4/21, Stuart. And Jerry. March 31st. David. And Jody. Now, in some of these, I don't have the year attached. How inconvenient, you know. But obviously, if you find it in 2020, it'll be the exact date. And it isn't a matching date in 2021.
And it says Zoom on mine, so that gives me a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that'll narrow it down.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Also, the times of meeting that are going on, there's in-person, such as we have tonight. They're going to...
Great, before you jump ahead, can we talk about the minutes for a second?
Sure.
What do we have to do to get a secretary? Let's start there.
I've told Derek that I need a secretary. He says I have one. I've talked to Doreen, and she disagrees with the ability of the person that he's referring to. The person is a floater, which means if someone's out,
Yep.
she's going to be taken care of,
Yeah, I
answering the
understand that.
phone, working at the window and all, but she's too busy, obviously, from my point of view, working here during the day, because after her day's over, because she is a part-timer, she's going home. I have found out lately that after Kelly retired, we did have a secretary, of course, and someone else, I guess, did or did not, I don't know the circumstances as such, but on a contract basis, which the union approved, she was able to come back on an hourly, working from home, and doing minutes for another committee.
Kelly, did I understand that, Kelly? You guys
Kelly.
are all muffled, I don't know.
I apologize.
I feel betrayed.
I apologize for not wearing a mask.
But it was, Kelly was, came back as a contractor, and it was approved by union and all, so it's all legal. But what upset me is she is doing the minutes for another committee. And we desperately need one, obviously, from the, you can see the number of minutes that we're behind. Because I always anticipated us to have a,
Well, Jody just said he wants to do them. He wants to know what's involved. Huh?
Different subject,
I just heard him say that.
different
Didn't he?
subject.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
don't you
Come
remember
on,
that?
Jody.
That's why I try not to miss any meetings, that's how you do your job sometimes.
Spelling names and
Right.
everything.
Well, I say we give it to whoever's missing tonight. Oh, Glenn.
Good incentive.
From my point of view, I think the error we had or experienced at the town meeting that was caused significantly by the fact that we didn't have a secretary. We just was not able to do the same process we normally do. And what we were trying to struggle putting out a 122-page report. And you guys are writing the articles, we're putting them all together, getting them all typed up and inclusive and all, and that last audit wasn't done. And that's what happened, and we were just overburdened with it, we couldn't do it. So he's on vacation now, Derek, so next week I'm gonna go in and tell him, we get one, I mean, even if I have to pay it out of my own pocket.
No,
But this committee needs a secretary to have correct minutes, considering what we review. And,
And you need them in a timely manner, you know,
Yeah.
listening to some of the things
yes.
on.
And my point of view is, because I've always indicated to him, hire somebody, let them do them from home. I don't, it's, as long as they're done, is what we're more concerned about. And they can work from home, because Jonathan has it all taped out with a disc and everything. We're ready to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, you know, in the environment we're in this day and age, that these things are, I'm not saying anybody's gonna come looking for them, but I mean, I think getting them on a timely manner is not an unreasonable.
What bothers me mostly is that we're the finance committee,
Yep.
and we're the only one without a secretary to do our minutes,
That's wrong.
considering who we are. And I'm not being pretentious, but we're the only committee created by charter who's specifically responsible for reviewing and recommending to town meeting on every article on the warrant. So I think we're very important.
Yeah, we're very important to the town and to the individuals who come to town meeting to understand what's involved and to get an independent review and recommendation. So, yes,
I mean, all our votes are recorded when they go to town meeting, that's the obvious thing. But people want to know that we actually did meet and discuss them. I mean, that's kinda,
yes.
But my problem is, if we got it on tape, why do we need to do anything more? I mean, my wife does a CPC. I used to do WCTV. It takes a lot of time to do it, and all you're doing is repeating. So if all this information is so damn important, nobody ever goes after it again. Because I mean, CPC I know is locked in some building down here, and nobody knows where the hell, even the key to the place. So why don't we just request that the WCTV document of the meeting be the meeting minutes?
According to Claire, people have asked that, and the state has not approved it.
Right.
So it's not approved, it's not acceptable, and that's, obviously, they're depending upon the technology that was developed when people learned to write. but they have not accepted
So,
those minutes.
I mean, I'll take the job and I'll just say, refer to WCP TV meeting disc
And
and a one-pager.
Mass General laws require paper. They have not upgraded it or updated it to allow electronic copies to be accepted. It's strictly paper. Has to be paper. The electronic, in fact, at the bottom of the minutes that I've done, I've always referred to, or even with the agenda, that the meeting is available on video through WCTV in addition to the minutes. So if they're lacking in minutes, they can refer to that. But I cannot use that CD that Jonathan's going to give me as a record. I have to have paper. Now initially when they started the Zoom, Steve Ruiz over there with WCTV had a program whereby you could see the closed captioning, but it was also creating a printed copy.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of them. But they were just not able to do it all the time, and they wasn't being used, so it wasn't necessary to go through the inconvenience or the problems that it created. So you can do closed caption, but there's no, and that's captured on the video, but it doesn't print out.
Well, until we get a secretary, I wouldn't spend very much time writing these things up. They can be 3 lines, and just
Right.
get it done.
It's supposed to be just basically an outline of the meeting anyways, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna get into every word that the chairman has said or anybody else,
No,
I mean, it's,
just
we
stick with-
discussed Article 17, it passed 8-0, I mean, whatever.
But I think there is technology that can take the video and type it up.
There is. WCTV used to use it, but Jonathan, would you know why they stopped? I can't remember the explanation that Steve gave me, but I think it was a kind of a convoluted methodology of doing that.
I didn't specifically work with the closed captioning. Sorry, I'm hearing myself twice and it's throwing me off. I didn't specifically work with the closed captioning myself, but I know that we were having issues, and also it's not an infallible system. A lot of the wording and that kind of stuff sometimes probably read through the other one doesn't always come out right. So it is still necessary for somebody to go through and go over them and make sure everything is right and all that kind of thing. But I think it just didn't work with the system as well as it needed to.
Yeah. I know Jesus was at a few meetings, but I didn't know he was on the agenda.
I mean, there's programs out there that you can sit here with a computer and talk into the microphone and it's gonna convert it,
Yes.
you know, but you do have to go back and proofread it because it's
Oh,
not,
indeed. And
it's not an exact science.
It did, because when it first started, Cassandra, in the selectmen's meeting, she sits down and listens to the meeting all over again to create the minutes. And when that first started, I was encouraging her. I said, you know, get a copy from Steve, and you can go through and correct where it is faulty. The names are wrong, how they mispronounced the words, etc., something like that. But it didn't come to fruition, and it would certainly cut the time necessary to do minutes down. You could have almost a verbatim minutes of any meeting in that way. Just take you a few little, about an hour to go through to proof it. But unfortunately, Mass General laws don't allow that. So, and that's the issue with that. They're already talking, back to the meetings again, the in-person to go to a Zoom or a hybrid. And they're trying to ascertain the kind of technology we need to do, let's say, a hybrid that is easily managed, because it is difficult. You gotta have 2 people involved. We have Jonathan here now. If we were doing a hybrid, we'd have to have another person. Now, there's another meeting going on over in the selectmen's meeting room that would require 2 people versus 1 now. So now we're doubling the staffing needed. So that has to be addressed and how that's funded. And of course, the application itself and how it's put in place, we have to understand how that will work. And of course, there's 33 commissions and boards, each one with a different chairman. So if they're going to do it with that, all of us have to be aware of how to manage it from our own point of view, not just having the technology with Jonathan and a second person. So it's a little complicated to accomplish. People are doing it, certainly are, and it seems to be working for some. My understanding, the difficulty is more in terms of the number of people involved. Is that the second person, as I referred to, in addition to Jonathan, they would be controlling who comes into the chat, and so they'd be keeping track of who has raised their hand, figuratively speaking, and allow them to come in. And the chair would have to know who it is, so they would come in, and then secondly, speaking on a particular duration, etc., things of that nature. It's not difficult to do overall. It is doable, certainly, and they just got to figure out how to do it. We're not involved in that decision-making process. It would be the selectmen and school committee. They're considered the primary ones that people listen into versus us. I mean, the both people we have listening in, Jonathan listens in, so he's one. Any comment?
Well, people need to understand too, there's a difference between an open meeting and a public hearing. You know, you do citizens' comments at the beginning, and then it's just an open meeting, which we're on TV, so everybody has access to watch it. I think some people are under I'm not thinking that because it's hybrid, that they can jump in anytime they so choose. In a public hearing, I'll use the plan, I'm not picking on the planning board, but most of their meetings are public hearings. Most of ours aren't.
No. Well, excuse me. Technically speaking, everything we do is a public hearing. And the language is in the Mass General Laws creating town meetings, finance committees. We hear every article. We hear every article. So we're here. We have hearings.
We hear every
We
article
are hearing.
from the whoever's bringing that article forward, but we don't always have an advertised meeting as a public hearing.
No, but as I said, because everything we do is a public hearing. We don't advertise. We are a public hearing. We hear the articles before town meeting.
Correct.
And anything we do beyond that is a hearing on the issue that's being presented to us or we are calling before us. That's a technicality. We run pretty much an open meeting anyway. We're sitting here just talking amongst ourselves.
Correct.
And nothing on the agenda other than we started with a particular subject and we're just expanding on it. So we have the ability to do so. Other committees have to follow strict rules of debate so that they can control the debate itself.
Well, what is the town doing about these meetings? They have a position yet?
No, they're still under discussion as to how to accomplish it, because it requires some investment. WCTV pays Jonathan to be here. We don't pay them, they're not billed us. Now, if they add a second individual,
That's
that
only,
doubles.
it's hybrid.
Yeah, that's with the hybrid, that would
So-
double the staffing required.
So it seems to me that come to these meetings or we do Zoom. And we don't know when the town's gonna decide this.
And nobody knows that. I mean,
Right now-
and it could be in and out of it.
Now it's my option. And we've expressed an interest in having in-person meetings. We're more comfortable doing that, and that's fine. The only requirement we have is to wear a mask. But then again, powers that be could change their mind.
Well, I prefer to do Zoom. I find it very easy, very effective, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, even works from Florida.
See, I'm just the opposite. Zoom would be my last choice. I like in person, and I don't have a problem with hybrid. But I appreciate seeing these folks that were here tonight and looking at them as they. I wish we didn't have masks on so you could see their whole face, but you know, I just like that person-to-person contact. It's very impersonal on the computer, but that's just my opinion. That's just me.
Okay, in keeping with the liaison, the community development, which is one of the committees, is eligible to apply for $825,000 in block grant funds. They have a consultant Jamie Von Buckminster of Community Opportunities Group. And that firm has managed Wareham's community development block grants for years, briefed the selectmen this year's grant opportunities during the April 10th meeting. And there's a list of them that they have, but they're looking for suggestions that they can go, like currently they have one, although the grants have not been written, that's to my knowledge, and it's just something that they're considering that have been suggested to them. There's $415,000 to public improvements at onset, $165,000 to public social services, $25,000 for an engineering study of 195 Main Street. I think that's the old Cornwell building, they call it, the old carpet place. And $220,000 for program delivery and general administration of the grant. And all of these grants have a certain percentage they're allowed to charge for administrative costs, and that's written into the legislation. That's one thing. We have more people in town. According to the 2020 census, we now have grown to 23,303 people. In 2010, we had 21,822. Means we've increased by a number of about 7%, or 1,481 people. Always interesting because they speculate as to how many we add in the summer, and I'm sure it's based on how many summer rentals are logged into the assessor's office, whether they're a rental or a home. And the next one, of course, town meeting, October 25th. And I sent you all a calendar that has them on, and I roughed out the meetings. I have no idea what articles are coming onto the town meeting. I've asked Cassandra if she would sneak me a copy, which she usually does, of anything that comes to her desk, across her desk. Doesn't mean that the selectmen are allowing it on the warrant, but at least we have a heads up as to what's coming on. And our next meeting will be September 8th. And I've scheduled every Wednesday after that. Now, I've scheduled it, we have this room, this is our room. And I will send you the agenda to let you know if we're actually going to have a meeting and what we'll be discussing at that meeting. But I just want to make you aware that that would be the evenings that will be reserved. I would appreciate it if you put that on your calendar as such. And as you pointed out, we got a short span of time.
Very short span of time to do our work.
Yeah, I was October 6th. I noted that our Finance Committee recommendations have to be complete. And on the 13th, we would go to the printer. I project, and we have two requirements. One, it must be available a week before, and also it must be available the evening of town meeting, our report.
Town meeting.
Yeah. So it's available as you walk in the door, of course, but from also available would be on Monday the 18th prior to, so that if someone would want to pick one up here at Town Hall, they can get it, or online. We have our own web page. And again, we have a email address, and so we'll get some and we'll pass them around, each take turn answering the emails, give us an opportunity to do some research of any of the issues that are requested. And finally, I have to tell you, as I said, I was not supposed to be chair. I was going to step down, which I had wanted to do, but no one stepped forward for it. So I'd appreciate it if anyone's around, if someone who's interested, please step forward, let me know. We'll go through the process of letting you know what it involves, so you can make a decision whether or not you want to continue. I have 2 years left, this year and one more. David has done his last year. I think you have another term, but you've already indicated that you're not interested in taking over the chair. So that's how it stands right now. This committee needs to be influential, and I think it needs to have a chairman who knows a little bit of what is going on in terms of running the committee, what is required of, and I promise I'll get you a secretary. But it would be helpful, I'd appreciate it to do so. I've done this for many, many years, so needless to say, I have a lot of knowledge as to anecdotal or whatever, and I would certainly, whoever wants to step forward, I would support them, and I would let them though make it to their committee. You have to have a personality involved in this, you have to be arrogant, you have to be an SOP. Helps to have a little ego too. But for many of the previous people who've been on the committee, I talked to one or two of them, are now either school committee or selectmen, that this is the most important committee. More important than either one of those. I was watching Met Dog hearings last night. No, this is more important.
Oh, boy.
Well, you experienced too with your brother-in-law's dog.
I get, and I'm not understanding what the hell you're saying, but
Oh, I apologize.
I will say, the warrant has to be done by the 17th of October, is that what you're saying right now?
For us to get our
Yeah.
reports in, yeah. Was it the 17th of October?
Well, it's the town meeting is the 25th.
Yes.
The previous Friday is the 17th, is that?
The 13th, we go to the printer. And the 6th, our finance committee recommendations would be complete.
My view has always been that the finance committee goal is to make sure that the investor, the citizen, is getting the best bang for their buck. And we don't talk about that at all. For instance, I don't know how fiscal year 21 is coming out right now. And it's been,
I mean, the
we're in
closeout.
22 right now.
Yeah.
So we just don't get any information, no data. And I realize I'm a pain in the ass at this point, but I would like to see information just to see what's going on.
I think what they're, from my understanding right now, they're closing out, all the accounts are closed out, stuff goes over to Department of Revenue, and that's what they're waiting for, Department of Revenue to say, okay.
But give us a peek. What?
Yeah, we don't have, it doesn't have to be final.
I'll ask Judy tomorrow. No, tomorrow, yes, tomorrow's Thursday, she'll be here.
I mean,
The school committee every month puts up their monthly stuff.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've watched it or downloaded their agenda stuff. Every month, they have the current month's expenses to budget, and then year-to-date budget, year-to-date spent, balance left over. Every freaking month they do that.
I haven't seen it, sorry.
Yeah, well, go on their website, Tom, and under agenda, any agenda,
On the school committee agenda?
yeah, go over to their website, under school committee, under agenda, and they have under the agenda all the reports they're going to talk about. And it's usually the last meeting of the month, where
They
in
sit there
there,
and sign the checks
where,
as to
yeah,
how
where
much
in
they're gonna
there
spend.
is usually a spreadsheet of the previous month's activity. We could have something like that.
With any commentary as to
The commentary.
why and what's gonna be
Commentary
and what's out
happens
ahead
at the
and
time of the meeting,
why we've
when the
missed.
business manager reviews it, okay? And that's a question and answer period to the business manager when she presents it and reviews it.
See, I've said this before, though, the system that Wareham's using is pretty antiquated.
You bet.
I mean, I came from a town where I was a department head, and I could go on the computer and print out my report right that day, and it shows I've spent $150 for electricity so far this year, out of $300 I budgeted. It's a snap of the fingers, you know. And the good thing about it was the whole town was on it. Before the system they put in, the school department had their system, the town had theirs. Well, Bernie knows what I'm talking about.
I mean,
I don't know if you were there when they brought the new system in, but you could go in and you requested anything. It was just a couple moves of the mouse.
and that's how they build managers too. I mean, so the manager understands what's going on. They're
Yeah.
keeping score.
Yeah.
So we don't deserve, we're incumbent to force the town to get onto that basis.
we're hoping, as I talked to Matt and Derek, with the new infrastructure bill that the feds have passed, the new infrastructure bill that the feds have passed, that there'll be monies, we can use some of those monies for that, because we desperately need something like that. It says, there's a system over there in the schools and a system over here. It talks to each other, but it doesn't work together.
It's ridiculous.
But we've talked about this several years now.
I know, but
Yeah.
let's quit talking about it and let's make it happen.
And I'll get the year-end report.
But
And the monthly end report.
At the end of the day, it's about the money and paying for it. I mean, just the license fee on some of these programs.
But we're paying more for the maintenance and the licensing of what we got
Yep.
than it would cost to get it than the new stuff. So-
Matt and I figured out that what is costing us now for 5 years and what it would cost us to transfer the system, 5 years is a break-even point. Because right now, the system we have, there isn't any service contract. There isn't any service contract for updates. There's no updates anymore. It's so old, they don't even update it. But if you have a problem with it, it's billable. You can't buy a service contract as you used to, because they don't do that anymore with the particular system we have.
But we're not doing our job, frankly, without getting that stuff. I'm sorry to be such a
No, Tom, it's,
nit. I hope that doesn't, not much of it shows up in the.
It's not a matter of us not doing our jobs. It's we're trying to work with the best information that's available to us.
yeah.
You know, and we want more.
But that isn't that isn't good information.
No.
It isn't fair.
I agree, and I'm not disputing anything you said, but, you know, it's like, you know, I've said before, me chasing salaries, what people make in this town. I'm not asking for anything that's a big deal. You know, I mean, I have a daughter-in-law who works in another town not too far away that uses the same system I came from. And she laughs at what we get,
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
laughs at it. They get Munis too over in Kingston.
And there's other systems besides Munis.
Oh, I
It's just one of
agree.
the most popular ones. Okay, anything else, gentlemen? Tom, your remarks are
Well taken.
well taken. Your remarks are well taken.
You may hear, I hope you don't have to hear it again, but you will.
Oh, we will.
I'm not gonna hold back because
No, that's what
I
you're
may
here
not be
for.
here next year.
Yeah, make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you, gentlemen.
Very good. What do we have?